Well, up next on CBC, a Manitoba school bus driver says that more needs to be done to keep young riders safe. Jodi Ruta has been driving kids to and from school in her community of Beausejour, Manitoba for the past 5 years. Online, you might know Jodi. She's known to her 150,000 followers on TikTok as Jodi the Bus Driver. Her videos aim to raise awareness about school bus safety, including her call for seatbelts to be mandatory on all school buses. And to learn more about that, she joins us now via Zoom. And we appreciate having you with us. Hi, Jodi.
Hi, I appreciate being here.
So just to sort of back up a step, when did you first start thinking about, the seatbelts on school buses and in your call to have them mandatory on buses? What prompted that for you?
To be honest, it's because of TikTok. I was being sent, after I started getting more and more followers on TikTok, I started getting sent a lot of the crashes that were happening. So I got to see the worst of the worst every single time it happened. And a lot of them, the reoccurring thing that came to my mind was, why isn't there seatbelts? Why isn't there seatbelts? Why isn't there seatbelts? And then in November of 2023 is actually when I put out my own TikTok series, I suppose, of seatbelts in school buses.
So when you were being sent, different things that were showing up in your feed about crashes, do you mean crashes on school buses specifically or on buses carrying, I understand Humboldt also impacted you as well. So that's not a school bus, but it is a team bus.
So I get sent any crashes that happen on buses. I end up getting tagged in them, sent them. So I get to see all of it. Yeah. The school bus ones hit my heart the most. And Humboldt, although it was before when I started driving, even before TikTok, even before I knew I wanted to be a school bus driver, I still remember that day and how it affected me, and now how it affects me every year when it comes up to this time of year.
Yeah, it's the anniversary just passed over the weekend, of course. You yourself were in a collision as well when driving the bus, driving kids to school. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like? Because it was at a crossing where buses have to stop. And that's significant because this also is going to lead me to ask you about another change you want. But what happened in 2023 in September?
So on September 28th, we were just pulling out of the high school onto Provincial 302, out of the elementary school onto Provincial Highway 302. And there is a railroad crossing there, which is uncontrolled. So myself and about 2 other buses in front of me had to stop and go through the railroad crossing. And once it was my turn, I did my whole crossing as I was supposed to, looked in my mirrors and realized the truck behind me isn't slowing down. And he ended up impacting us, probably going around 80 kilometers an hour. It was, from the outside, it didn't look like that big of a crash for the bus. The bus, in fact, was roadworthy immediately afterwards. The truck was never moving again. The engine had actually pushed its way back into the truck's fire wall, so the truck was written off totally. I had all of my students on the bus at the time, and it was one of those moments where I got to see the gambit of emotions that children will go through, because some of them were Snapchatting, others were laughing, and then there, of course, were the ones that were very, very scared and crying for their parents. And that itself is one of the hardest memories I still have of that crash.
So that stayed with you, the sound of the kids in the bus and the fear there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's 2 things here that you're hoping might change. So one is seatbelts, and the other has to do with the crossing. So can you walk us through that? Because I, as a motorist, have different rules, I understand, than what your rules are for crossing at those railway tracks, right?
Yes. So the railroad crossing, what I'm trying to get changed there is, we are the only vehicle in Manitoba that has to stop for controlled and uncontrolled railway crossings. Even the trucks that carry flammables, like the fuel trucks, they only have to stop at uncontrolled railway crossings. And having driven for 5 years now and driving on things like the perimeter, stopping at some of those controlled railroad crossings are very scary. especially in the winter when the snow is built up, because we have to be able to open our doors to listen for the train. But we also then sometimes are partially in the lane, and then technically that is our lane, but vehicles don't understand that and they still try to pass two beside us even though there isn't room. So having being hit at a railroad crossing, I am a little bit more on edge about any crossing that I stop at.
And I should also make mention that, as you said, the emotional turmoil and the memory of your accident with the kids has stayed with you. We should mention there were no injuries.
Yes,
in that,
thankfully.
just to say thankfully. So that's stressful for you. Seat belts. Why do you think that wearing seat belts is something you'd like to see, and that would make a difference for young riders?
So I got to watch the video of my crash, and I was so proud of all my students. They were sitting perfectly, which made compartmentalization work the way it's supposed to. And compartmentalization is those high seat backs. And to be completely honest, in small vehicle crashes against a school bus, head on or rear end, direct hit, school buses are beasts. They're going to take that vehicle and chew it up and spit it out, just like my bus did. But even then, in that video, I got to watch all of my students fly forward and hit the seat in front of them. Now, thinking of other bus crashes, even the one that we just had recently here in Manitoba, where the bus ended up flipping, you don't have compartmentalization anymore. In fact, a study done by Transport Canada in 2010 outright states it's not safe inside impacts or rollovers.
I just want to interject here. You're referring to sort of compartmentalization being with this high seat back, that even though the kids don't have seatbelts on, they're in a compartment of sorts. So if the collision or the force comes from behind or in front, you can imagine the kids will be locked into sort of that space. But yes, as you're alluding to, if the bus is hit in a different way, you're starting to think about the way the kids would move without seatbelts on. And you're citing Transport Canada here and saying a study in 2010 was talking about that compartmentalization wouldn't help in those cases. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you also believe, I understand, and you're active, as we mentioned, on social media, that that not enough people are aware of the rules around buses as well, and that is a safety issue.
It is amazing how many people, one, will drive through our reds, and two, will stop for our hazards. So technically speaking, we have two different sets of yellow flashing lights. We have the lower ones, which act exactly the same as any other vehicle on the road. It just, we're a hazard. I might be slowing down, I might be moving to the side of the road to do something. Just a general hazard. It's those lights on the top of the bus that really matter. And if you look at MPI's website of where they teach class 5 drivers, all it says is blinking yellow lights means the bus is about to stop to discharge children. And it's not technically true.
Before you go this morning, what have you heard from officials in Manitoba about this issue and some of your calls to, in your view, make things safer for kids in school buses?
To be honest, I have had amazing working relationship with the leader of the opposition, Wayne Wasco. I'm really
the interim leader of the Conservatives. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you follow me on TikTok, that probably will surprise a lot of people. I clearly am left leaning, but I'm really enjoying working with Wayne, not only because he's the MLA in my area, but also because during this really polarized time, it's nice to show that we can work together to get really good things happening.
And have you heard anything from government officials in Manitoba? Have you reached out directly at all?
No, technically I reached out to them about other issues and never got a response for those, so just didn't even try. I have tagged Wab in a bunch of my TikTok videos. If not, his team has seen those. I have no idea.
Yeah. Thank you very much for what you do. All school bus drivers, right out there every day, rain, shine, or sleet or snow. And thank you for outlining your concerns on CBC. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for taking the time to have me on here. I'm really excited to share this passion and hopefully make school buses safer for everyone.